Another contribution to this segment on technology today. We're going to be talking about a couple of things, actually. Elon Musk, there's a lot to say there. Tesla, Twitter, you name it, man. Next up, I'd like to talk about some data security. We touched base on that in the first episode on our segment of technology, but I'd like to just get around and speak about mostly, what Apple's doing with their data security on all those sorts of things. And yeah, just throwing in there whatever comes to mind, man.
My name is Brendan Nell.
My name is Llewellyn Visser, and this is Finding Board.
Roll intro.
So basically, and in a nutshell, Elon Musk. Enough said, man. Where the hell do you want to begin with this one? Because I can name at least three things that we can start off with.
Well, I do think there's quite a lot to say about the character that is Elon Musk. But I think, quite frankly, if you would start talking about Elon Musk, actually came to an interesting revelation the other day about him. Now, obviously, we all know he's this sci-fi type billionaire, which he uses his funds in order, like with SpaceX and Tesla, to make sci-fi reality, send man to Mars, etc. But however, a lot of people associate him with a real life Tony Stark, you would say. If you think about it, I didn't know this, but did you know that the film Iron Man 2 actually was a cameo he made in the film? I never knew this when watching this film as a kid. It wasn't personally one of my favorite films, but actually a large portion of the film was shot inside SpaceX and also outside of SpaceX building, which makes it pretty cool to me, linking him as the Tony Stark of the real world and actually making a cameo in the actual Iron Man movie.
But Iron Man 2 was a badass movie anyways. Like, that was where because the MCU kicked off, so like they just, it's one of the sequels that's really up there. But okay, so SpaceX and factories and whatever. Elon Musk at the end of May sent an email to the employees of Tesla, in a nutshell, ordering them back to work. Like, none of this work from home stuff. Like, we are coming back into the office. And there were some mixed reviews on that one. Elon Musk said in his email, there are, of course, companies that don't require this, but when was the last time they shipped a great new product? It's been a while, Mr. Musk wrote in the email to his staff. So he obviously wants to live up to Tesla's important reputation and deliver products that will change the world in the course of mankind. But the problem with this is that, put it lightly, in May 2020, Tesla opened up one of its factories in Fremont, California. And this was despite the lockdowns at the time in California, and cases soared. So that's one thing. And then some of the employees on an app called Blind, which essentially is an anonymous app. So you have to register your email address that you have with your workplace, so they can establish that you are really an employee of these companies you're anonymously talking about. So they gave some mixed reviews about it. They were like, well, what if we all just up and left? Like, how are you going to achieve your projects now if we wanted to? Not that there's a strike or anything at this point in time. Whereas other companies like Twitter, and we will get to this in a minute, Twitter's CEO tweeted that, they're slowly reopening back for the employees to come back to office. Like, it's, same with Alphabet, Google's parent company, just gradually come back to work. Second last point, Elon Musk said no to remote work. There was a reply on Twitter about, asking about this and that about the employees. And he just simply replied, well, they should pretend to work somewhere else. And lastly, man, I actually read this morning that South Africa is lifting all of its restrictions. So if you're a
Mm.
tourist, you want to return back to the country, you don't have to show your vaccination status, and face masks are no longer a requirement. Just on the bombshell of people returning to office in these COVID phases.
I mean, it's been so long we've been in this pandemic, and we've had so many phases, lockdown phases, etc., which was kind of weird and anticlimactic the way it happened, because there was no actual meeting with the president or anything on television. It was just merely boop, overnight. Well, face masks are gone, which is probably, in my opinion, the most revolutionary breakthrough at the moment. I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, have you going into a shop this morning not wearing a face mask? You kind of feel like your face is completely nude, which is so kind of weird in a sense. But yes, I think as a country and everywhere, everyone is pretty flattered about the idea that we don't have to wear face masks anymore. I mean, restrictions on gatherings are also finished. And I think finally our hospital system is now capable of dealing with it. So yeah, I can't believe it. 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah, now it's weird not wearing face masks. Hey,
very weird.
On the note of Twitter, Elon Musk and the current CEO of Twitter tweeting that, come back gradually as need be. Elon Musk has obviously put in a bid to buy Twitter. It's a pretty penny for a social media platform. I do know that there's been a couple of things that have gone on in the meantime. It hasn't been, nothing has at this stage been approved yet. Nothing's gone through. He's just put the bid in. He's got the board of directors at Tesla on board. He's been leveraging some personal assets to, make up the funds. But to try and counter the price and get it a bit lower, some experts reckon Elon Musk did what he did, which is he asked for a report from Twitter directly to state how many accounts are bot accounts. So that's a bit of a strategy to, obviously say, well, Twitter isn't 100%, active. So there's some dead accounts or what have you.
I'm quite aware of the acquisition. I haven't been following it as rampantly or clearly as you, which in terms of my Elon Musk research, I've looked more towards his background and how he started out, when he's born in South Africa, still a United States citizen. However, which I find is quite interesting is how he dropped out of grad school in Stanford after 2 days to start up his own company, which was Zip2, if I'm correct. And just think to myself, it's such a bold move, only 2 days into grad school in such an institution as prestigious as Stanford, to go from that. And you just think about the backlash you would have gotten, I know, from friends and family, which eventually sold Zip2 in the year we were born in 1999. He sold Zip2 for over $307 million. Which is crazy to think about. I mean, you can take him as an individual during his time in university before staying 2 days in Stanford, which he actually, the student house he was living in, he made it into a nightclub, in which he had to put black bags over the windows of the house, and which he had his friend that would he would keep the party going, and as well he would also hire his mother as a door lady and also help with the day-to-day tasks in these club student house. And oftentimes he would stay upstairs, the sober one, just playing video games. It's just, for me, he's such an revolutionary, an entrepreneur, and a philanthropist, from such humble beginnings as that. As well, also in university, I remember I read a lot about him just eating ramen noodles, as most university students do, and not to get malnutrition. He would actually just add a couple pieces of bell pepper, like red bell pepper, not to get malnutrition. And if you look at him today, which I found also is quite an interesting thing for me about billionaires and things like that. I mean, have you realized he's actually selling up quite a bit of his illustrious estates and mansions? Lots of his reported time in which he actually stays at a mobile home. Those actually you buy. I don't think it's from Amazon, actually. That would be funny, though, Amazon. But it would be a mobile home they set up. And actually, he does not even own it. He rents it out. So, which is quite crazy for me to see. It's closer to work. I think that is where, I don't know if it's closer to Tesla or the SpaceX building, but it's interesting these ways these billionaires, spend their money, and how they, after all these illustrious acquisitions and things, how their lifestyle itself becomes more and more simplistic, that's just interesting for me. I don't know what your take is on that.
I remember reading about the former CEO of Twitter and there was Jack Dorsey, and he was quite similar in the way that he was radical. So he would take 2 weeks off and go on like a retreat, or just like disappear into the woods. He was very spiritual. He was a vegan.
Mm.
He like had one meal a day, and it was pretty much just a blend of, you know, salts and lemon juices, and he'd wake up and go to his sauna. Like he was just, and he ran Twitter at the time. He stepped down in November 2021 by the current CEO, Parag Agrawal, and still the CEO for Square, the payment receipts company. So it is interesting seeing how minimalistic these men live. Now, mind you, Jack Dorsey doesn't have the net worth Elon Musk does, but Elon Musk could literally lose it all tomorrow and buy it back again in a heartbeat, a few times over, and yet he chooses to have nothing. I think I saw one of his interviews with Joe Rogan. He pretty much does it just to flex. So they say, "Oh, so you're the rich guy. Look at all the stuff you have." And then I go, "What stuff? I don't have any stuff." You know, like, there you go. They've got nothing on me now. But yeah, as for Tesla, one thing I do think is very ironic and also contradicts the email is, if Tesla is so busy, you know, changing the world and being the most important product out there, then how come we haven't heard anything in the last 3 years about electric trucks from Tesla? Like we heard about the quote truck, the Cybertruck, the cyberpunk vehicle, but where have we actually, whenever we last actually heard about fleet vehicles? You know, like you think fleet, you've got Scania, Freightliner, Volvo. Where's the electric Tesla truck?
I remember the last thing I saw pertaining to the electric Tesla truck was actually Elon's physical presentation of it, which was quite interesting. He had some thoughtful and inventive talking points there, as like they would never use brake fluid again. So essentially your brakes would go on forever. They would never have to be replaced. Second of all, I think it works on a combination of four electrical engines. So essentially if two would fail, it would still keep going. So actually quite as a revelation as you think about it, such a heavy machine of transport that is a truck going over to completely electrical and keeping that sustainable. I think that's a step in the right direction, especially now with gasoline prices soaring. I think it was the Audi company that's actually said that from 2030 and on, they would like actually to completely reduce their cars to a minimum that uses actual gasoline, just completely go over electrical. So yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think definitely with a company as innovative, although as you said, we are waiting still on more news and in terms of production where it will start and so forth. But going electrical, is that a way that something you look forward to, or are you going to miss the sheer nostalgic thrills of a gasoline car?
The longer I live, the more I go for electric. Like, I grew up around petrol heads. I well and truly grew up in the era before electric cars were a thing, and the benefits, you know, the financial benefits, the economic benefits, the environmental benefits of an electric car, it does astonish me. The affordability matter is obviously something that needs to be looked at because it's still brand new. And I think more so just the recycling, the refurbishing of these batteries mainly that go out of use in the electric cars. I think those are the things that need to be looked at because it's all still relatively new. With Tesla, like they've let's stay with semi trucks real quick. So you have trucks like, or companies like Daimler, Mercedes Benz. They've already got electric buses. They've got electric trucks in the making as well. Freightliner, who I just mentioned, you know, they've confirmed an electric bus as well. Now, if we go over to the Cybertruck, that's, you know, in South Africa, a bucky, or in everywhere else in the world, here in Australia, a utility. This vehicle, this pickup truck, they announced it 3 years ago. They took orders for it, they took money for it, and we haven't heard a single thing since then. The biggest revolution, although I'll mention with pickup trucks, is that since then there's been a company called Rivian. It's come about. Now they're backed by Amazon. So you might have at one stage seen Jeff Bezos hop out of a Rivian SUV and get into a space shuttle. So that company went public sometime at the end of 2021. And they went at like, I don't know, it was like $150 a share, or they opened with $100 a share. It jumped to $170 a share, and now it's well and truly lost a lot of its value. Like it's probably not even $50 a share now. Like they've just gone backwards. I've read they're not fulfilling orders. I've read that they are having delays, they're having issues, and Elon Musk did actually say that the hardest part about making a machine is to actually make the machine that makes the machine, if that makes sense. So that's what I feel like Rivian is not getting right at the moment. As for Ford and Chevrolet in the US, the Ford F-150 Lightning, they've got an electric truck. The Chevrolet Silverado, they're working on electric trucks. Anyone else in the mix, I guess you can say, are working on electric trucks. So the competition is definitely getting intense. The electric car is becoming more affordable. So who knows what's actually going to happen for Tesla in terms of competition. They might still innovate, but if the market is no longer, if there's no more demand for the cars in the market, then who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I think in large scale, in order for electrical cars and vehicles to become the norm, I think definitely the facilities for it, the infrastructure for that has to be developed quite a bit, because I hardly think that in a country even like South Africa, we have any form of facilities in order to charge your electrical vehicle in a country which amongst like the Afrikaans people, a bakkie is more of a religious idea than it is an actual car. Going full electrical, I think it's very cool. Like if we can do that in a grand scale of things and do it more and bigger and faster, I think definitely electrical cars would quickly more become the norm, as opposed to just being an interesting idea.
The next part of this conversation here, I was reading about Apple's App Store, and basically what they've done. So Apple is real big on safety and fraud prevention and privacy and whatever it is they do with your data. The App Store alone in 2021, they prevented nearly $1.5 billion in fraudulent transactions. They have deactivated 170 million fraudulent customer accounts. They have prevented 3.3 million stolen credit cards. Like I can just keep going down the list. Like the App Store on Apple is really safe for you as a developer or you as a customer to go and launch your product and do your shopping around for your apps or whatever. Like yeah, Apple says that it plans to continue to work to detect these fraudulent activities and yeah, just continue to make it a safe and trusted place for users to find and download their apps. Like that, I thought that was very interesting. And then I also read that Google Play Store, to go on over to Android side, their apps are now being forced to disclose what data is being collected. So now, the consumer will actually have this screen that comes up that shows you what data has been collected, like your financial info, your photos and videos. And obviously, I imagine we have the option to tick and say what we approve and what we want to be collected and whatnot. So it's definitely becoming very discouraging for fraudsters to now get onto these apps and platforms and actually go about and make a quick buck off of some unknowing customer. Like have you ever had like anything on your end that had to do with fraud or any suspicious activities on one of your accounts? Like,
come to think of it, I had a notification from Apple about a month ago that says most of my accounts were in a data breach, and I had to change all my passwords, which I found like it's pretty cool, like being notified that, and in terms of data protection. But like as you said, with fraud in terms of data collection by developers and app developers, is like it's not a new thing. It's a thing that's always been there. I think it's just become a thing we've become more aware of late. You know, it's nothing new. It's just like we've become more aware of the situation at hand, and we've been starting to take an interest in it. So yeah, like I said, it's not particularly me that I would know. There's things like fraudulent apps or things like that, but yeah, I think now I'm just a bit more aware of data collection, and I feel quite rested assured, as you said, with because I personally I like using my Apple. I love Apple OS. It is, in my opinion, one of the best operating systems there, just in terms of how safe it is, and you can truly feel safe about your data. I think that's a good thing that Apple has. It's privacy, which I feel is a bit not as open-ended as other operating systems, for example, like Android and so forth. But as we also did discuss in our previous episode about Linux and some of its operating systems like Ubuntu, it's also pretty very well thought and well developed applications of things you use there in terms of privacy. So I think it's just like I said in the beginning, it's a thing we're far more aware of than we were in the past, and making it more and more difficult for fraudsters, you know, to continue and operate the way they usually did.
And the irony is, with Apple and Google now, Apple will essentially become Google Cloud's biggest customer. Like Apple is obviously in competition with Google phones, Android devices, but they're one of their top customers. Like about five or so years ago, or 6 years now, I should say, Apple signed a deal with Google Cloud to host some of its iCloud services. And this is obviously now a huge loss for Amazon and Microsoft, who, you know, hosted some of the Apple's iCloud services as well. Now, bearing in mind, this year alone, Apple is going to spend $300 million on increasing its cloud services, the size of its cloud. So that's a hefty amount. And the information that Apple has claimed is going to boost its spending on Google's cloud by 50%, you know, at the end of this year. So I thought that was really interesting to see how, I guess you could say, you have two people in competition with each other on stage, but in the background they're actually, you know, doing deals and helping each other achieve their objectives, be it indirectly. So I thought that was pretty cool. But otherwise, a really good note to end on. So stick around for our final episode in technology coming up next. Take it away, Brendan.